Hey, welcome to another episode of the Fit Growth Machine podcast. I'm Brian Rosenthal, your host, and today we have a very interesting topic as we are going to interview Dominik Mayu, and he's the head of e-commerce at All33. He's an advanced conversion rate specialist, brand builder, and responsible for millions of dollars in earned partner revenue. But before talking to him, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by BSR Digital. At BSR Digital, we help e-commerce brands that want to scale their business to the next level through Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. Yes, after the iOS 14 update, now more than ever, we understand that it's really important to level up the marketing and design a solid strategy as what used to work doesn't anymore. So if your e-commerce brand lacks a solid plan and professional team to increase sales, we can help the same way we have helped more than 1,000 brands like yours for over a decade. To learn more, you can visit us at bsrdigital.com or you can email us at hello@bsrdigital.com. Now, as promised, I have Dominic here with me. Hey, man, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, why don't you start by telling the audience more about your story?
Yeah, of course. So I've actually been involved with e-commerce for quite some time now, about 6 years, kind of as a revenue optimization specialist. That's kind of the term I like to use there. I've been working with All33 for a few years now, and have really helped kind of develop that e-commerce side of their business, the brand side of their business, to really grow to where they're at now. So definitely check them out if you've never seen their ads before. Likely, if you're an entrepreneur, you've probably seen their ads before, but it's a great product for anybody who wants to go check them out. It's All33. But just to give you a little bit of my story, I'll try to keep it somewhat brief. About 6 years ago, I got approached with an incredible opportunity to start learning e-commerce, learning CRO, with a company called Build, Grow, Scale, which again, a lot of people have probably heard of. So I was one of the first people to hop on board at Build, Grow, Scale, was mentored directly by Matthew Stafford, who's an incredible person, and is really good at what he does. Was really lucky to work with a handful of e-commerce brands, from all different industries: apparel, supplements, office chairs, a little bit of everything, and have helped all of those stores not only improve their conversion rates, but improve all of those metrics, right? Improve their AOV, their customer lifetime value, improve their overall revenue, and not only those set in stone metrics, but their brand. I know that's something we really want to talk about today is how to build that brand and why building your brand is so important, especially in 2022. Like you said, with all the Facebook and iOS updates, with how many e-commerce stores there are now, building your brand is really important. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started, and things have kind of evolved into where they're at now. I've been working with All33 directly for a few years now, and absolutely love what I'm doing over there. And yeah, that's pretty much how I got started in the space. I hope that kind of gives a little bit of a background.
That's awesome. Yeah, all 33, they definitely have great products. The other day, as a matter of fact, I saw a LinkedIn post of someone I follow, and I interviewed him, I think, a few months ago. He's great, actually, great founder of a great company. And he posted, I got my chair, from them. So he was super happy and said great things about them. And yeah, you should check them out. Of course, as always, there will be links in the show notes, including All33 website. But yeah, let's start talking about today's topics. And the first one probably is the one you mentioned. Why it's really important in 2023, 2022, 2023. Also, as you said, to build your brand. Whereas before, probably I don't know, during the pandemic, it wasn't. It's not that it wasn't necessary, but people saw some success without it. But
Mhm.
why do you think it's important right now, and what can companies do about it?
Yeah, so e-commerce took a wild and massive shift over the pandemic. Pre-pandemic e-commerce and post-pandemic e-commerce are two very different things. So the days of just building, a low-level store, adding some drop shipping products, creating some ads, and making a ton of money are pretty much over. I know we all see those YouTube headlines, that 19-year-old that made $2 million drop shipping this month, but I don't know how realistic a lot of those actually are. So the shift that, we're really in is the brand shift. It's building a brand, it's building a connection with customers digitally, right? In the days of brick and mortar, a lot of really successful companies were able to build that brand with their customers, build that connection because they'd actually go into the store, they would connect with their customers that way. But now e-commerce is so huge and so relevant that you have to find a way to do that digitally through your website, through a few different things as well, social media as marketing, all that fun stuff. But your website is a vital piece of that. So building your brand will not only help your conversion rates, will help your lifetime value significantly, your AOVs. But at the end of the day, we're building a business to be long-term and sustainable, whether we see selling that in the future or not selling that in the future. But a non-branded business is going to sell for a fraction of what a well-branded and well-positioned business is going to sell for, if that is something you want to do. And at the end of the day, building that long-term sustainable brand that's just going to keep pumping, whether maybe you take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit, right? Maybe you want to travel a little bit, spend a little bit less time on the company. If you were able to build a really successful brand, if you were able to position yourself as a really strong brand, it's not really going to slow down. That will really carry itself for a long-term sustainability timeline. If that makes sense.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in one of the recent episodes, we mentioned one of the latest e-commerce reports made by the coach at E-commerce Fuel, one of the top e-commerce masterminds in the U.S. And what it mentioned was they surveyed like 600 plus e-commerce brands, and what they mentioned was that the top performing brands, the main differentiator versus the rest of the brands was the branding factor. How it was like, I don't know, 43% attributed to the branding, efforts. So we have discussed a few things related to that in the podcast, but what we haven't discussed that much was one of the key factors to building a brand is to get to know your customer, your avatar, right? So how can brands start doing that? What do they need to do?
Right. So like you mentioned, it's building that customer avatar. That is absolutely vital for any company, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or, you just made your first sale last week. And how you develop and find that customer avatar is obviously going to be very different, whether you're all the way up here, or whether you're down here. So what I'll recommend first on finding your customer avatar, how to find it, if you have past sales, if you have data, to actually go back and look at, use that data to develop your customer avatar. So many business owners actually have no idea who they're actually selling to. They have an image in their mind, but at the end of the day, it's somebody totally different who's actually buying their product. I see a lot of business owners, and I've fallen victim to this all the time, is they think their customer avatar is themselves, right? They build a product that they like, that they would buy. So all they're marketing towards is themselves. But at the end of the day, you are likely not your customer avatar. So if you think you are, reflect on that, go do some research, look at your data, look at who's actually not only buying your products, but engaging with your content on your social media, engaging with your ads, commenting, sharing, who's really engaging with that to develop that customer avatar. And when you're developing it, get as detailed as you possibly can. I actually name my customer avatars. It's Gary is my customer avatar for this fishing e-commerce store. And I give an entire life story behind Gary, right? Obviously it's the basic demographics. I have the age, the gender, all of that fun stuff that is easy to establish. But what is Gary doing on this Friday night? What are Gary's hobbies? What is Gary's wife like to do? Really build a persona behind that, write it down, put it on your desk, and look at it every time you're making a decision, right? Does Gary like this decision? Does Gary like this email you're about to send out? Does Gary like this ad you're about to run, this copy on your website? All of that fun stuff. So that's kind of how to build that customer avatar. If you don't have data initially to build that from, it definitely gets a little bit more complicated. Obviously, use any data you can, but if you don't, just start asking people, right? Asking around, asking friends, asking family, asking strangers, doing competitor research. There's so many tools now that you can spy on your competitors, to see exactly, what ads they're running, who's seeing their ads, and then go through and see who's engaging with all of that kind of stuff. Use other people's data to start, and then obviously as you establish your own data, use that data to further develop that avatar.
Yeah, definitely. What we do in the agency, for example, is to see to try to go over the reviews, Amazon,
Mm,
off Amazon or
mm,
whatever, wherever they have reviews. We try to get them. But there's someone we interviewed last year, I believe, or really early this year. She was a speaker in I think the first at work conference this year, um, on that topic specifically, which is how to build the avatar. And she mentioned a few case studies. If you want, go listen to it. We'll put it in the show notes. But mainly, a good idea she had was to build three focus groups, right? The lovers, haters, and those who probably didn't
mm.
buy from you, but were hanging out or subscribed to your email list. So you'll get insights. And then I like the ask method by Ryan Levesque, but there are many. There's a book around that too. To organize them, to filter them, and to categorize. I don't know, reviews, insights from customers, non-customers, right? And to put them in buckets and then take action based on that. And it's really interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that theory a lot. And to kind of add to that, I want to add that there's nothing wrong with asking your past customers, with contacting your past customers. One of my favorite campaigns to run, and I've ran this on almost every single partner and client I've had in the past, is an actual call campaign where we're reaching out to past customers, asking them what they liked about our product, what actually made them buy our product, what do they like about our brand, is there anything that almost stopped them from buying, and taking that data and really applying that to the ad front and the website front and the email front. Those three things specifically, right? It's like the front end, the middle end, and the back end. And we found incredible results from that. And I don't think we've ever done this and made a call that actually made somebody mad. Because if people are buying from your brand, they like your brand, they want your product, and they're probably not going to get upset that you're reaching out, inquiring about that. I don't think I've ever had anything go
Yeah.
wrong with that. Um, and yeah, it's a great way to gather data.
Okay, great. So yeah, first step, build your brand. There are probably many other factors we are not going to be able to cover in this episode about building a brand, having a vision, what you stand for as a brand, and many others. But clearly that's important to be on your website, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the big question is where, right? Because one thing, I mean, full disclaimer, I currently belong to the Build, Grow, Scale community too, right? It's not how we
Mhm.
met; it was by coincidence, but it's a great community, right? Great e-commerce community. And one thing I learned from them, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, is that people want to tell, I mean, brands want to tell their story and many things, but is not probably the main thing people want to see from them on the website. So probably shouldn't be in the money making lean sections, in the header or so. So if you say, you should level up the branding, in every medium, email, social, wherever. What about the website? What's the right place for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the answer to that is everywhere, pretty much. And I'm going to kind of explain what that means. But building your brand is consistency. So it's being consistent across obviously your entire website, all the pages, social medias, everything. It's consistency, and you're able to build your brand through your colors, your fonts, your headlines, your copywriting, your images. every single thing has something to do with your brand. So I agree with you as far as, yeah, you probably shouldn't put, your about us above the fold on all of your product pages. That's probably not going to be a great idea. But what you can do is use certain lifestyle images that are associated with your products that help build on that message you're trying to deliver. Some brands that I can think of that do really good with this, or think of like Patagonia, North Face, those kinds of outdoorsy brands that have, when I hear Patagonia, that's immediately what I think of. I think of camping. I think of going hiking in the mountains. And they've done that through such a way of imagery. Go look at the images a lot of these websites are using. Some smaller ones, Iron and Resin. I absolutely adore that brand. They do an incredible job with their imagery. So if anybody runs an apparel shop or really any e-commerce store, go check out Iron and Resin. I'm not associated with them in any way. I wish I was, but they are awesome. So go look at their images, go look at their fonts, go look at their headlines, and every single area that you add copy in your site is going to be associated with your brand. So little snippets here and there that add to your brand, that tell a little bit about who you are. Everything doesn't have to be directly about the product, directly about selling. It's building a connection. So obviously, everything is so unique.
Yeah.
So it's hard to give like a checklist, like here, go do this, this, and this. But if you have that idea of that customer avatar and building a connection with them through your copy, through your images, even though it's still selling the product and is related to the product, how can you build that connection at the same time?
Even the unique value propositions, right? That probably should be more,
Yeah, absolutely.
present on the, I don't know, above the fold or in the product pages, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Quickly, a shout out to Angela Clark. She's the head of digital at Patagonia, and we have interviewed her. So again, the link will be in the show notes to that interview because she explained, the importance of, standing for something as a brand and many things. So since you mentioned the brand, I just wanted to quickly give her a shout out. So
Mm.
yeah, that's all interesting. So what we want ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, for a website is to convert, right? We wanted to
Yeah.
convert, the highest conversion rate possible, but not, I mean, this is not only about the conversion rate, but it's like, the bottom line, what we generate, the value we add for the company as well as for the customer. So I would like to dive deeper there for a sec. What does conversion rate optimization, to start off with, mean, let's say, for us
Yeah.
to be on the
So
same page?
conversion rate, oh, sorry. Conversion rate optimization means exactly that. It's improving your conversion rate. So at the beginning of the podcast, I used the term revenue optimization, and that's the reason that I use that term over conversion rate optimization. Um, I can go cut the prices of all your products down in half, and your conversion rate is going to go way up. So just conversion rate optimization alone isn't necessarily a powerful tool to run behind to track all of your metrics. It's your revenue. And there's a million things that fall into that. Obviously, conversion rate is extremely important, but so is your average order value. So is your customer lifetime value, your returning customer count. All of these metrics play a vital part in your overall revenue. So, yeah, using the term revenue optimization is something that I really like doing for that reason exactly. Because I've worked with partners where the first thing I go in and I look at data and I look at everything and I say, your conversion rate is good. You don't need a ton of work on your conversion rate, but your average order value is terrible. Like we need to add 20, 30, 40, 50% to your average order value. And what's that going to mean for, your ad spend, your profitability, all of that kind of stuff. So the first couple of months is strictly focused on, hey, how can we increase this AOV? And I've seen huge results come from that.
So about that, of course, you have a lot of experience and it's impossible to catch up, in a few minutes. But for everyone listening who is wondering, um, you know, you mentioned that you look at the client's website and that data and say, hey, probably your conversion rate is good, but your AOV needs, improvement. How can you tell that? How do you realize if there's room for improvement for in the conversion rate or in the AOV or in any other part of the
Yeah.
e-commerce?
So I think a big part of that honestly just comes from the 6 years of experience, just working with so many e-commerce brands, seeing what works, what doesn't. I'm trying to think if there's like a better way to kind of paint that. Um, let's come back to that shortly. Let me think of that in the back of
Yeah,
my head
I
as
mean,
far as
if
how to
you
look
have
at
any
those.
benchmarks, typically it's like, okay, below 1%. I know it's not that way precisely,
Yeah,
but it's like below 1% conversion rate probably is not the best. Above is good, but then some stores, I don't know, high ticket they have, I don't know, 0.5 and it's super good. I don't know, but
right.
so let's go back to that in a sec. So let's say what could you probably a different way to ask is what do you look first when you look at the website?
Hmm.
If you can give a high level tip for everyone listening with getting ready for the holiday season and for the long term too, 2023. uh what can they look at to understand, hey, my website needs improvement or is actually doing a great job?
Yeah. So first things first, make sure you're looking at the data just in general, right? I think a lot of people get fixated on like the conversion rate only and don't look at the rest of the data. They don't realize their returning customer rate is 2%, 3%. So look at your data and see what's kind of lagging behind. And obviously, that's going to just be very situational. If you have a $2,000 product and you're converting at 0.5%, that's actually pretty dang good. So everything is very situational, but look at what's lagging, look at what's falling behind, and the lowest hanging fruit is what I like to call it. Right? Like if I fix this one piece, what would that mean for my business? And organize all of those by relevance, by most important. If I increase my conversion rate by 20%, what would that mean for my business? Or if I increase my AOV by 20%, is that what's more important? And look at what you're currently doing as well. A big thing I like to do is, um, let's say you look and I don't know. I look at the data. I don't know if I need to work on my AOV, my conversion rate. I'm not sure. Look at what you're currently doing. Is your website, does it have a good feel when you land on it? Does it feel drop shippy? Is there a brand behind it? Is the copy relevant? And is the images good? And if it is, if you have a good website, do you have upsells at that point? How are your products priced? Do you have any efforts going into increasing that AOV? And if you don't, that's a very easy win to get that AOV up. If your returning customer rate's really low, look at your email flows. What's underperforming in your email flows and your post-purchase emails. You can even look back at how's your packaging. That's something that I've tested in the past with certain clients is getting custom packaging, getting really nice packaging, and watching your return customer rate shoot through the roof, literally just from the boxes that you ship your product in. So there's a lot of kind of ways to look around, but it's look at where you're lagging, and what would make the biggest difference. What's the lowest hanging fruit? What's the 20% that could provide the 80% of those results when you're in the back end?
Right. So I wanted to briefly discuss one case study you shared with me in the prep call that I think will be pretty interesting because it's about, increasing the post-purchase, the AOV in the thank you page, right? We can cover that in a sec. But I was wondering, is that the only, let's say, right place to, I mean, let's say you have I don't know, you have many products of many categories that could easily, apply for a cross sells, would you rather offer, an upsell before before they buy to suggest them an upsell, or do you prefer to get the purchase of the first or main item and then to suggest them to buy products in the thank you page or in a post-purchase email sequence or everywhere? How could you
Mhm.
go about that?
So every client I've ever worked with, I upsell through the entire journey. And I think upsells have a really bad rap in the business space. A lot of business owners think upsells are spammy, think that they're not going to convert, that they're going to actually turn customers away. And they definitely can. There are certain styles of upsells that I stay away from. I'm not a huge fan of the pre purchase pop up upsells. Have they worked in the past? Absolutely. They've worked for some clients. So I'm not saying don't run those, test those. But there's a lot of different ways to structure and position upsells that are not spammy, that do not hurt conversions at all. So a lot of what I like doing is adding small type like check boxes on the product page. Again, I usually avoid the pop-ups. Not saying you have to, just test it. But yeah, adding small check boxes. My favorite upsell of all time is called priority processing. And basically all that is it moves, if you're in shop, or really if you're in Shopify, WooCommerce, anything, it moves that order to the top of the processing queue. So it's basically free money. It's really easy to code. I can, add a tag to any purchase that purchases the priority processing that automatically bumps it up to the top of the queue. So it takes no work, actually adds value to the consumer. And I've seen 20 to 30% take rates on that. And I've also used price points all the way from $3 to $40, doing the exact same thing, depending on the product, depending on the situation. But I've seen it bring in tens of thousands of dollars in additional revenue a month, every single month, of just additional revenue, additional income. And the cool thing with that is that's 100% profit. There's not too many products outside of digital products that are 100% profit like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is said that people prefer fast versus free, right?
Yep, exactly.
So that's great. So you mentioned some check boxes in the product page for the upsells, right? Instead of a pop-up.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple ways you can structure it. Again, it's hard to explain without like showing, but yeah, just basic check boxes that honestly don't draw a ton of attention to themselves, or maybe they do draw a ton of attention to themselves. What I really recommend, if you have enough traffic, is test. Just A/B split test things.
Yeah.
A/B split test, adding these to your websites to see what happens, watch the take rate, watch the conversion rate on each side, and push the upsell according to that. But yeah, I have upsells on my product pages. I have upsells on even in my checkout, but they're again very non-invasive. Upsells are very non-invasive. Performing at a 10 to 11% take rate, which is phenomenal. I have post-purchase upsells. Yeah, and they all work really well and don't affect conversions, don't make us look spammy. They don't do any of that.
Okay, so one thing you said, and I wanted to go deeper there for a sec. You said, look at the data when you A/B test. Where and how long should they wait on average? Or what indicators should they look at? X volume of traffic or X conversions to call the day typically?
So that's a topic we can sit down and talk about for an hour. And I call that significance, right? Testing significance, statistical significance, if you will. I have a couple of baselines that I recommend people when they're getting started. Again, are my baselines 100% accurate and you have to follow? Absolutely not. It's just what I recommend to people. If you don't have the traffic to get to true statistical significance, which there are calculators. So if you just Google statistical significance A/B testing, you're going to find calculators on Google that are going to be great. So use those. But let's say, those calculators are telling you need 3 months to run this test. I don't like that. Usually I will not keep a test running for longer than 2 weeks unless it absolutely needs to go for longer than 2 weeks. Another baseline I like to follow is 100 transactions to each variation. So if you have one variation that doesn't show the upsell and one that does, each one should get about 100 transactions before you call anything. And then as far as when you're looking at the data, there's a few things you want to look at. If it's on the product page, you obviously want to look at add to carts, see the differences in add to carts. You want to look at conversion rate. And if it's an upsell, you want to look at the, take rate of the upsell, the AOV, on the variation versus the original. So statistical significance is a hard one. It really depends on who you ask, and it's hard to reach significance unless you have a ton of traffic. But it's easy to still test without that.
Okay. Is there any app to do A/B testing, or you just change something, wait, and then change it again, or roll it back?
Yes, so I definitely don't recommend doing that. Definitely want to use a software that actually splits the traffic for you. So it does it live. So you want to use a software. I'll name a few in a second. that's going to send half your traffic to this variation and half your traffic to this variation automatically for you. So that way it's the same sample data. I don't like doing it over time, like this variation for this week, this variation for next week, because that's going to be two totally different times, different data samples. So get a software. Google Optimize is phenomenal and it's free. It's called Google Optimize. I've used Convert in the past. I like Convert a lot, but I know it's a little bit more expensive. And yeah, what that'll do is actually split the traffic live for you directly. So I definitely recommend using.
Okay. Um, Probably, I know again, it depends on many factors, but if you can come up with, I don't know, 3 to 5 high level, you know, mistakes to avoid on a website. So people can
Mhm.
say like the 101, revenue optimization, probably shouldn't do this and that. What would those be?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep these pretty black and white if possible. So first things first is going to be site speed. That would definitely be one of the black and white ones. If your site is taking an eternity to load, it is not going to convert. There's so many site speed services out there now. Go find one, implement it to your site, and leverage that. So that's a huge one. That'll help significantly. The second one, this is going to be a little bit less black and white, but make sure your images are good. That is so important. And I know good isn't necessarily a great indicator, but use high quality images. Make sure your images actually describe your product, give value to the product you're selling, and make sure people want to look at the images. 80% of selling on a website is copy and images. So that leads me to my third point is take time on your copywriting. Either hire a professional or take an immense amount of time yourself going through, rewriting, reflecting, asking people their opinions, rewriting and implementing all of the copy on your website. That's super important. And then what are some more black and white ones? I would say number 4 is use data. Don't just go in blind making changes. Use data, see where your website's underperforming. Maybe your add to cart rate is really low. That means you need to work on your product pages, right? Maybe your checkout or cart to checkout percentage drop off is way too high. That means your cart sucks. So go and work on your cart. So yeah, use data for everything if you can. And fifth mistake is, I would say, not making your company reachable, if that makes sense. So we've actually found huge wins by literally just adding a live chat, an email to the footer, maybe a phone number if you have somebody that can answer the phones, in the header and the footer, and just showing that you're a real company, showing that you're willing to talk to your customers. We found big wins just from that compared to companies who don't have any of their contact information anywhere on the site, make it really hard to get a hold of them. People don't like that. So I would say that's an easy implementation, is adding a little live chat feature to the website and adding your email in the footer. If you have a phone number, add that as well. But I know that adds a complication to things. So
Awesome. Yeah. Um, and what about, I don't know if this is what you do, but the email marketing sequences, what are like the must have automated flows that every brand should leverage to increase, AOV, LTV?
mm-hmm. So there's a handful that I would definitely recommend having. That's going to be a welcome series to new customers, B, an abandonment series. That is so important. That's the most important one. Make sure you have an abandonment series automated. Welcome series, a win back series. So winning old customers back, basically. That's a really important one. A buy or die campaign, I know, is something the team likes to use a lot, which is basically old customers, again, putting them in a series. If they don't buy, then kind of letting them fall off into maybe just like the monthly newsletter type thing, which I also recommend. It's just an informational monthly newsletter. Hey, we're still here. Here's some information, here's some value to you. That's another area that those brands that we were talking about earlier do a good job at, like Patagonia, North Face, Iron and Resin, again, just adding value to your customers' lives, right? What do they want to read? What's your customer avatar want to see? Send that once a month in a newsletter. It's really not that hard. But I would say those are, the most important ones. The win back, the abandonments, and the welcome. If I had to pick three,
Okay.
or what I would do. Yeah.
So probably one of the last topics I would like to cover in this interview is, the holiday season is almost here. We are a few weeks away from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, etc. And I don't know. Do you have any tips, suggestions? Do you think, for example, brands should create a separate landing page for their Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals? Should they use their website but with a banner around those commercial dates? Uh, should they avoid touching, anything probably a week before the I don't know that day comes? What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, it's the most exciting time of the year for any e-commerce brand owner. But yeah, so what I would really recommend doing is making sure you have a powerful promo. I think that's a big mistake I see companies not doing. Is just, hey, we're gonna do 10% off, maybe put a little banner up, and that's gonna be our promo. Be powerful with it. Put a message behind it. Offer a bigger promo than you typically would. People are really expecting that on Black Friday. So offer what you can, obviously make sure you're still profitable, do all that stuff. And then as far as what you're doing on the website and the audience, so I would pre-prime it if possible. You leverage your email list to kind of build hype, right? For the promo, like, hey, Black Friday's here. This is what we're doing. Boom, 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 be ready. And blasting those emails out, as soon as you can in advance. And then as far as the website goes, I love using banners. So I'll replace obviously the homepage banner with the Black Friday, the announcement bar at the top of the website. And sometimes I'll even add full page banners to the product page, which is kind of against best practice, but I've actually found it really helps over these periods and adding those full page banners. Site speed, is important, and making sure your website's functioning. Take a couple hours and go through everything you can to make sure there's no major bugs, everything is working fine, because nobody wants to wake up on Cyber Monday and realize their add to cart button isn't working. That is a nightmare. So definitely make sure everything's working.
Definitely, yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think will benefit the audience?
Um, I think we covered a lot of really awesome stuff today. I know we kind of just touched on the broad scope of a lot of certain things, but it sounds like you've interviewed a lot of people that actually go into the specifics of a lot of what we talked about. So I definitely recommend any of your audience who hasn't seen those, go check those out, because everything we touched today is very powerful. It's how I've managed to, help my partners bring in millions and millions of dollars of revenue. So definitely take the time to do this kind of stuff. It's really valuable.
Awesome. So where can people go to learn more about you and the company?
Yeah. So best way to learn more about me would honestly be my personal Facebook page. I post a lot of content on there. I love connecting with people. So obviously you see my name. I don't know anybody else that has my exact name. So if you spell everything right, I'll come up first. Send me a friend request, and yeah, I post a lot of content there. Talk with me, send messages back and forth. I love doing that kind of stuff. And then yeah, I definitely recommend Build Grow Scale as well. They're an amazing company. So that's just buildgrowscale.com if you're looking for anything like that. And yeah.
Yeah, actually interviewed Tanner, one of the founders, and I learned a lot from him and from Matt once I joined to the community, and it's a really awesome community. So I definitely recommend you check them out. So for you guys listening, as always, there will be show notes if you are listening to this. I mean, in the audio version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other, you can head to feedgrowthmachine.com and look for the episode, and you will find the show notes there with all the resources that we mentioned in this episode. And if you are watching to the video there, well, scroll down and you will see everything right there. I just want to thank you, Dominic, for being here. You provided a lot of value to the audience and to me as well. So I hope everyone has a great holiday season and you use these tips as they will serve you for sure.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.